Hey everybody, BTO Pro here. I'm going to show you something we just got worked in to the latest in 05X of ELMS Learning Network that has to do with accessibility. And so if you haven't seen the new interface, this is what's available in that branch. So I'm just going to go to a page in our content here, and historically we've thrown media in. Right, I might throw this video in from somewhere else. And I go to the media system, right, if I want to quantify it locally. So I'll go over to our media system, right? So I might do this with two tabs. See, we're keeping the same UX patterns. And then I'm going to create this awesome content type called H5P. And so me showing off, because that's what it is. So let's go to interactive video, and with our interactive video, we're going to do an interactive video of, it's kind of ELMS showing ELMS, but a video that I shot the other day just showing something silly. So if you haven't played with interactive video, you can do some pretty sweet stuff with it. You can overlay things, you can stop the video and ask a question. Here's what I was trying to point out. All right, so maybe we'll make this a button versus it just taking up the whole screen. And that button will appear right at the beginning, and it'll be available for 10 seconds. And so really what I'm trying to point to in this is up here. And so maybe we'll edit this button now, and we'll say we'll pause the video, and we'll do it from 5 seconds in, and it'll be visible until 8 seconds. Right, so you can see it moved the little dot on there. I can scroll through and see when that would pop up. If I want to see what this interaction would be, right, play it along, you see the button comes up, it stops the video, and then the user would have to engage with this button. So that's the simplest use case, right? But this isn't accessible. And I don't mean like, oh, we can do area landmarks to do whatever. I mean, this is something in motion. You're stopping video automatically. Can you even think of the voice-driven system that would have to be built to suggest to someone that can't see this what's going on? So we have an alternative idea here, and that's to create a fallback. And so let's go to create accessible fallback for the contents. They won't see that title, so just an example. And then what I'm going to do is we're going to grab an embed for this video. There are other ways you could do this, right? I could actually add this as its own media type if I wanted to, but we'll say, okay, we'll paste this in as our video embed. And then maybe I want to grab the exact statement I had. Whoops. All right, so we'll grab that. Done. And then we'll say here, this video is demonstrating a concept toward the top right corner of the display. All right, it will say, here's what I was trying to point out, for example. Okay, I can also clean this up further by just kind of wrapping it in a responsive video class. And so now we'll save. Right, and so what we used to have is we'd have our H5P widget load up, and here's our H5P widget. But you'll notice now we get this line at the top, enable more accessible form of this media. And so if I play, we'll just see quickly what it does. There's no sound in that video, and so you see me clicking through whatever, it pauses. The user can click this and say, hey, look here, this is what I was pointing out. Play, and then we'll see that that's a fixed background, statically positioned. Neato, but let's switch it to the enable more accessible form of this media. You see it reloads the item in place, or at least it appears to, and delivers instead the YouTube video with the demonstrating this concept thing here as the written text. Now, when we throw this into our material, let's look at our display options. You can see we have iframe, and we've also got these H5P cards, which I kind of like. It just uses material to offset it a little bit. It's a little cleaner looking. And so let's copy that token. I'm going to go over to our content now. Stuff. Here's a video about some things, right? Paste in our token. And now when we save, take a second here. See, we'll get our dynamic resizing because H5P is influencing the video, which is actually loading in a frame, and then YouTube is stuffed in there, so it gets a little trippy. But you see we've got our offset card content. I could play it just like I could before and interact with it. Or I can go, oh, I need a more accessible form. And you see we have it reload in place because there's a iframe there. You do a background transparency of it, a background that is transparent, and the frame dissolves into the DOM basically, as far as the way it's presented. So we can also then switch back to the more accessible or the more interactive form, if you will, if we really wanted to. Other thing with this, you can only see this when we zoom in here on the type in question, is we've also got text associated. Well, we did have to add it back in, but now you can see there's just a link there, and it's reloading the frame itself, and then calling for the accessible fallback, which means at that point we could just stuff in some invisible position text if it's a screen reader hitting it to say, hey, the upcoming interaction. It might be better for you to enable the more accessible form of this media. Select the next option, which would then reload this frame. It's in the same context because they're within the focus of the frame and should provide for a rather seamless, accessible experience. We're also working on a unified user profile amongst ELMS Learning Network. So in those settings, which don't have fully worked out, but in the settings for your profile, you would be able to say, hey, I actually prefer the more accessible forms by default. And so our preferences, right? We could start to say media preferences. We could start to get into, hey, well, I have seeing difficulty, or I prefer things in high contrast mode. And using these settings, we could then, as the media is about to be served up, look at your preferences and go, oh, we're just going to flip it over to this. And so by just flipping it over to it, you don't even get presented that option. You get the link that would say like, hey, do you want the more accessible or the more interactive form of this? But we can start to doing this. We have the media dynamically rewriting itself based on the context of who's viewing it. As far as what it did when I created those, the neat thing. To do this, we added a static content type, and so when I created that associated content, it actually creates it next to it. So this is, it's another type in here. I could embed this as a standalone if I really wanted to. We could also attach these as SVGs currently. Any of the other types. I could also see this being useful if you're affixing it to maybe a complex image and you want to serve something that's much more text-driven in its place. What the advantage is here is that then you're delivering it everywhere it's used, presented the same way. And so because it's by reference, if we want to, we go, oh, shoot, that H5P widget isn't as accessible as we thought. Let's make an accessible fallback. And now everywhere that's used is going to start to deliver that way. So we don't have to worry about figuring out where to go and update all of our H5P interactions or all our SVGs that we thought were super accessible and really easy to understand, but we're finding they're not. Maybe we should just deliver a paragraph of text. Also, as a side benefit of the static content here, you could start to embed static content across your portfolio, again, by reference. So you think about university policy, things like that. I don't know that I would store those in a media system per se, but it's absolutely something you can do with this now as a result of that. So thanks for tuning in. Please check out elmsln.org or check out the repo and get the latest version. We're really making some great strides in usability and design.